The next two presentations will report about the European research project E-ARK and its results. Switzerland wasn't an official partner of E-ARK, but we work voluntarily together on some issues. Our next speaker is Mr. István Alfoldi from Hungary. He is working in the company Polyphon. He is a director of this company and is a consultant of the National Archives of Hungary. He was a member of the E-ARK project, and István will be talking to us about the E-ARK general model for e-archiving.
Okay. I have some subtitles below the title because I have presented the general model at the final conference of the E-ARK project and also at the last DLM forum meeting in Malta. So today I'd rather talk about the future directions and especially the future or the possible future of the process, use case and process model within the general model. So after a brief overview of the model for those who haven't seen it, focusing on the processes and use cases, I would like to talk about why we think that we should open the discussions about these processes, why we think that rethinking the processes is necessary, and some future directions, and at the end, it's a spoiler, I will share you my wildest dreams. So the first version of the general model was the official deliverable of our project at a very early age. It was supposed to set the stage for tool development, requirement specification, and other specifications and piloting. In this model, we have created some process diagrams in BPMN language. We've chosen it because that's a de facto standard and because of the multi-layer architecture I will show you a little bit later. And we have also created some UML-like use cases because we think that these two modeling tools go very well together. Today we have 4 chapters, or as we learned it, 4 pillars of the E-ARK model. We have use cases and processes, format specifications, tools, and pilots. And we've realized that E-ARK is was a very complex project, so we need to see the connections between these parts. That's where the general reference can help us. In the first version, we had only the processes and the use cases. And I would like to change this one to another presentation and to show you. This is the second version of the model. So here you can see that we've defined pre-ingest and ingest use cases. I don't know whether you can read it. I don't think it's very important to read it. And the access side use cases. And we've created pre-ingest, ingest, and access processes. The focus of the E-ARK project was pre-ingest, ingest, and access. And this is a more detailed version. You can see that we aligned the use cases and the higher level of the process diagram. So this is something that we've done here, and maybe So this is how the multi-layer architecture looks like. You can open one box and that opens another layer, and I will talk about it later and our ideas. So going back to this presentation, this is the second version of the model, reflects to our knowledge within the E-ARK project. We have created a third version for the wider public, for the community. This is a very nice design, but a little bit reduced, a little bit simplified content. And theoretically, there's nothing new. Our knowledge is the same here as in the second version. You can find both models, the second version and the third version, at the knowledge base, at the DLM forum site. I would recommend to use the older one if you are familiar with the E-ARK project and you are looking for detailed information. And if you are new to the project, I would recommend to use the third version. It looks like this. We have a library part with all the E-ARK elements. If I select the common specification here, then there are links to the specification, to the documentation, the same with any tool, to the site of the developer or to the documentation part. And these are the pilots we have done. If you find at other places in the model the pilot you are interested in, then you can see who was responsible for it, which archive, and even a contact person's email address you can find there. We have a nice map view for specifications. I'll just run through it. Tools, pilots, and here you can find the processes. And the one that everybody loves is the connection between the elements. If I'm selecting CRD 2.0, then it's very popular. CRD 2.0, at least half of the people at conferences asked us about the CRD solution and our possibilities. And you can see that we have a tool to visualize it, a tool to store it. You can see the business processes that we have that are using it, or the use cases, and you can see those pilots that had anything to do with the CRD package CRD archiving. And if you go to that, if you select any other part, then you can see the connections. Please visit it, please play with it. But the E-ARK project has ended. We are very sad, but it ended. Pilots are over. Tools are maintained, supported, handled by the tool developers in good hands. Also, the format specifications are in very good hands. The DLM forum launched the archival specifications board called DAS board at the beginning of this year. So the specifications are also in very good hands. But what about the processes? And what is the status of the processes anyway? The project ended at the beginning of this year, although the process model reflects to another point in time, because that was where we had to freeze it, not freeze on purpose, but the project logic made us to freeze it, because at that point we had all the requirement specification of the tools. Almost all the tools, or most of the tools, were already developed, and the pilots were defined. So we haven't done anything with these process models. Until this point, there were heavy discussions about the models, but the models, the process and use case model reflects to our knowledge at that point of time. So we have to rethink it. These are the use cases that we have covered in the project, but we could think many other use cases almost as valid and used by the community. We have a pre-ingest, an ingest, and an access process and its details, but we had nothing to do with the other OAIS processes. So we'd like to open the discussions, and we like to go on with the processes, and we have an extended scope here. So one reason is the extended scope. Another reason that the general model collected the knowledge of the members of the E-ARK project. But this picture would be much more beautiful if all Europe or even other parts of the world could contribute to this model. So we have an extended audience also. We have defined a three-layer architecture, an archival summary layer, an archival detail layer, and a technical detail layer. That was enough for the project. That was enough for tool development and requirement specification. But it's not necessarily enough or the most convenient way to handle it for a wider community. Also, we mapped our tools, but other tools could be mapped to the process steps. And also, we would like to map these process steps to the new service structure that we hope we could enter with the eArchiving building block, CEF building block. So we have an extended objective as well. So possible future directions. We have to consider more use cases, and we have to think about what we want to do with the other OAIS processes we haven't covered in the E-ARK project, especially data management, because archival storage and preservation planning is usually done by a system. Every archive has its archival system repository, but data management is something I think we should think about. We should rethink the process layering. I could think of or dream of a common European layer that is common for all of us, and then below that layer we could have local solutions. If we could achieve this, that would be a great step ahead. Even if we won't be able to do that, it would be very important and informative to know why. Are we really doing our job completely differently? The tools. We could create requirements for existing and new tools to cover parts of the processes. A pre-ingest tool must cover these and these and these steps. Because if we have these requirements, then the tools can meet each other. And if we have the processes, we have the specifications, then the tool developers would know what part should they support, what part of the processes should they cover, and where is the point where they want to use one of the specifications as an interface layer. And we would like to map our processes and actually all of our all of the results of the E-ARK project to the new service structure of the CEF building block program. Okay. And I would like to create a formal repository. This is my wildest dream, a pan-European repository for all the processes. This is a very the process models are very formal, formalized, standardized, but the description isn't. And the processes are not this is my last sentence, sorry. The processes are not the goal, they are the instrument. They help us communicate, they provide a common language to talk about between researchers, archivists, tool developers, organizations, specification providers. We can all come together and talk about it. Thank you very much.
Does anyone has any questions? Yes, Tim?
I'll just holler. Very practical question. I love the E-ARK models, I love the UML, I love the BPMN. Can I download files that I can put into my enterprise architecture tool so that I, in my institution, can extend those models? Or do I have to take the models as presented as PDF or Visio and reconstruct them in my enterprise architecture tool?
I'd be happy to send you the models. The models are in Bizaji and BPMN tool. They are not downloadable. The first version of the general model, which was the official deliverable, is downloadable, and you can find these presentation-like models on the web. But if you contact me, I'd be happy to share all of the processes with you. But I'd be really happy if you not modify it, or modify it and tell us that why would you want to modify it? Because we want to do something together.
I understand. Whilst I really value the bringing together of general models like E-ARK, so far my experience is that those general models, when naively applied to a local institution, are never a good fit and will always need some specialization. So the kind of work I'm talking about doing would be the specialization that would be needed locally, but that would not necessarily be inspirational for others.
Yes, I agree completely.
Okay. Thank you. I will be in touch.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Remarks. Thank you, Istvan.